all part of this, right? And it's not perfect, and we're not going to get it perfect when we do it. But if you look at American agriculture, we cannot do it without it. If you look at the retiree population of the United States in the next 10 years, the boomers, we cannot take care of it without the immigrant labor force. If you look at the millennials and the huge amount of kids that they're going to produce because they're a huge thing that's coming through our system, a huge population, they're going to need it for people to help take care of them and service that part of the population. And that's not creating more competition for our workers. I think it's just filling in. And maybe I'll close with it. I don't know if there's any more questions. But there is not a country in the history of humanity that has been at its peak losing people. All great countries, all great moments in history are countries that are bringing people to it. Right? There's never been a country where we're the greatest country in the world, and last year we lost 100,000 people because we decided not to be. In fact, always in history what you find is that countries that are successful are countries that are incorporating outsiders. Rome's greatest period is when it took others and made them part of Rome, right? And they move forward. And America does this better. As broken as we all know this is, right? There's no one in this room that will stand up and defend U.S. immigration as a perfect system. It's better than what anyone else does. Because what we do at the end of our process, because of our culture, because of a broken system, because of the space we created, because of the liberty we create when you're done through that system, we create Americans, and other people don't. Other people legalize foreigners in their country that remain foreigners within their country, with limited rights. When you come to America after a generation, you're American. And your kids are American, and you don't see, you may have one day a year where you dress up ridiculous and consume some liquor that you shouldn't in mass quantities, but the rest of the time you see yourself as an immigrant with an accent of some sort, whether it's Irish or whether it's Honduran, and I think that lends to our strength, right? Because the person that brings a culture in also have the ability to see within themselves, outside of themselves. And an immigrant, what he brings to America is the fact that he chose us, right? The rest of us, in my case, I was born here by the grace of God. In the case of the immigrant, he said there is a better place. And so they're trying to make that happen. And I think we have to create a system that creates that opportunity.
Another question over here from Janet Norman.
Yeah, I appreciate your optimism about the future of some sort of immigration fix legislation, and know that you would work toward that. My concern is that I'm not quite as optimistic, but even if I were, I don't want to see the things that could be fixed, the smaller things that could be fixed now, go unattended when so many lives are at stake. I too serve the low-income immigrant clients, and there are little things that are just glitches. You articulate some very pragmatic reasons why things make sense for people who have all different sorts of perspectives on immigration, and I think my discouragement is if we leave those little fixes that we might find some sort of unanimity on, at least enough to get passed. That really hurts my clients, very much right where they are.
Right.
And the UACs are some of them, HRIFA clients or others. We paroled in these children of those who'd gotten a green card through HRIFA. We paroled them in as HRIFA dependents, the Haitian Refugee and Immigrant Fairness Act. And then they turned 21 before their case was heard, and so suddenly they were left without anything. It's that kind of fix that I think if folks were to reason together, they'd say, hey,
I agree. And that's part of the reason I said this to Maria. Because the big sort of things we're gonna get there. But there, for example, Zoe Lofgren, who is the chief negotiator on our side, not from the political side, but the technical side. She's a Californian from Santa Clara County, an immigration lawyer by training. So while Luis Gutierrez may be the messiah of immigration reform, she's one of the apostles to make sure that somebody's writing down the Bible, so we got it written down in a way that makes sense. And so I'm a believer that that's why we need that, we need a conference, or we need some type of documentation that allows us, on things like that just common sense, right?
Right.
Because there are
I think
tons of
there are a
things.
number of them that would help more folks than we realize and who are in current distress.
Look, I'll give you an example that everyone in Miami would agree with. Venezuelans, right? We've got now, what is it? They've got, what is it? Deferred action on their asylum cases. What is there's a terminology for it. Withholding, they've got a status where they've submit their asylum claim, but it doesn't get processed. Or if it's gotten processed, they withhold deportation, right? Because of what's going on. And it's a TPS for lack of a better word, but it's not a TPS. But you've got this whole community here, they've invested here, they're part of our country, they're part of this community. You're looking at TV, they can't go back. Haiti is very similar. We've got to deal with these things, and it's easier to deal with them now, in a chunk, than to sort of say, leave it there. When I talk about functional problems that they just don't have constituencies that we can deal with, that's why I sort of talk about judges being given great latitude and so on. But the children, I believe to some degree, there is more compassion than people give credit for. Save my really point on the Republican side, because I think most people get this. But what it should inspire us to do is what we did, and I have friends who worked on this, in trying to help these countries deal with this. And we didn't help these countries by building more walls there, but by creating a little bit of a safety net that we could try to work with, and we have. This is the last question.
Any questions?
Then I'm going to swim home.
Okay.
Mr. Garcia, thank you so
I
much.
think she had a question.
I'm sorry, she's behind me.
You said something about you were for the in-country refugee program in Honduras. That takes 18 months to 2 years, where they have to stay in danger inside the country while they're waiting. In a country where 95% of all homicides are not even investigated,
Yep.
54% of police are gang members. So you say you support making them stay there instead of maybe them going to like Mexico and applying and waiting for refugee status here?
No, I maybe you understood something I said. I didn't think I got that specific, but I will tell you that wherever we can process refugees in country, you tend to have better results than when you create refugee camps outside of countries, because then you have two countries to deal with, and it makes the refugee status more complex. Because people, once they leave where they are, I'm talking about the country, I know the neighborhood maybe, but when they leave a country, then you're creating all sorts of other problems. You know, that you create refugee camps that people are born, lived in, and die in, because they become a life unto themselves. And once the UN steps in and you create that status, it's very difficult to get around it. And when you're dealing with refugees, you should expedite it whenever possible. But as you know, in today's world where people fear immigrants, in particular where they fear terrorism from abroad, you've got to be careful.
Yeah, because my concern is they can't stay there. They don't have
Oh, I
18
got
to
it.
24
I got
months. They leave.
But I also know that the U.S. government has a heavy hand in Honduras, and no one is going to try to go against U.S. authority in those places if we can provide some safety net there. I just think it's, once you start crossing borders with refugees, it never ends. It becomes, you know, refugee camps get filled with other folks who then you just can't, you can never end. And the countries that's why countries rarely want to participate, because they know once you open a refugee camp, you're going to close it.
And last week, an 11-year-old girl was drowned and
Yeah.
Possibly one more question from Levis Torres, Ubican.
Una preguntita. ¿Cuál es tu opinión acerca del paquete de ayuda que la legislatura federal aprobó de 750 mil millones durante 5 años a los países del Triángulo Norte? Si tenemos en cuenta, teniendo en cuenta de que los 3 países tienen una corrupción total de gobierno.
So I'm going to answer that in English, but I think everybody.
Right, the question is basically, what do you think about the $750 million package of assistance to the Northern Triangle in Central America, given that the countries are rife with corruption?
So let me give you two parts of that. The first part of it is that realize what happens when you have a country that has an immigration agreement with the United States that has long-term effect. Now I'm speaking about Nicaragua. You don't have this problem in Nicaragua to the same degree. Part of the reason is because you have a functioning immigration relationship with the United States, right? The families that came here many years ago, they were legalized through an extraordinary process, but that process works, and to some degree you don't have the kind of illegal migration from Nicaragua that or undocumented immigration that you have from the Triangle countries. That's one. I say that because that's how we have to think of immigration, right? There's a long-term impact for not having a rational relationship with places. Secondly, on the money, while I understand that there's corruption in countries in the region, we don't have a choice, right? The countries are the countries that are there, and while a lot of that money gets funneled to NGOs, in the end you have to work with the countries that are there. I know a lot of the people who worked on this program. What I know is that that amount of money has to be programmatic to what they tried to do, right? Which is coordinated not only with Homeland Security, but they coordinated with the Justice Department and with other different entities in these countries to try to create a capacity to provide a better ambit for what was going on. I don't think they're going to deal it with that amount of money, but it's sort of I allude to what I had said earlier about we need a holistic approach to our neighboring countries, right? On how we promote investment, how we promote development, how we promote education in these places, and market relationships with us, because I think it creates a difference. And using Mexico as the example, I'm not going to hold up Mexico as the perfect institution, government or anything like that, but what is clear is the long-term relationship we've had with Mexico has created enough wealth that today Mexico is not the leading player in illegal immigration to the United States or undocumented immigration, precisely because Mexico has institutions that are working to some degree, and we've got to aspire to try to make sure that happens in the rest of Central America. But I do think that the money that was allocated was a very good start, and they did some good things.
Good. I want to thank Mr. Garcia for coming to talk to us.